At the Dialogue Code, we believe you can bring great change by listening to the people. Here, Cormac Gilligan, Global Vice President of EHS from Pepsico Worldwide, shares how his function did it.
We had a big challenge, and just to set the context a little bit for everybody. So PepsiCo is a parent company. We're one of the largest food and beverage companies in the world. So everything from Frito-Lay to the sodas that are becoming less and less part of our portfolio, but Gatorade, Tropicana, Quaker Oats, Walkers in the UK. We have about 360 brands globally. And we have consumers consuming our products 1 billion times per day across 200 countries. So as a food and beverage company, it's quite significant. Within the organization and what we do within environment, health and safety, we have 360,000 employees globally, running 220 manufacturing plants, thousands of distribution centers around the world. We have 88,000 trucks on the road, which is everything else. And then, of course, we have all of our research and development teams, our support teams in our HQs and in our offices around the world. Our role as a function is to keep these employees safe, to keep the members of the public that we come in contact with safe, and to ensure we're reducing our environmental footprint and acting in a responsible way from an environmental point of view. So the context for us back in 2015 was that we had lots and lots of challenges. We had a lot of issues that we were not necessarily dealing with, and I'll explain the context of that in a moment. But before we do, I'm just going to run this quickly. So that video is kind of one of the outputs of all of the work we had done post the dialogue to explain to the organization, to our key stakeholders internally, the importance of what it is that we do, what we actually do. So I'll come into in a bit more specifics some of the reasons why we felt we needed to create that. So the challenge we had in 2015 was that as a function we were not connected, we were not working together, we were not working in a single approach. Everybody had different strategies and different ways of working, and we really needed to fix very intently what it is that we were doing. The numbers, as you can imagine, from an EHS perspective, we deal in very serious numbers. We're not talking about sales or volume, we're talking about human life. And back in 2015, 2016, we had very bad very poor numbers. I'm not allowed to share the specifics, but suffice to say, with the numbers of vehicles we had on the road globally, everybody doing their own thing, no consistent, consolidated central approach to how we were addressing these risks, we were having very high numbers of very serious incidents. The cost to the business was enormous, estimating about $500 million. We were missing massive opportunities we were listed on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index at the time, and we were missing huge investment opportunities from that investment community in the organization because our numbers were dragging the broader agenda, where we were pulling it down. And there was minimal investment in really driving improvement in the organization. So this was a big issue for us. We needed to address it. We held a dialogue we went through the dialogue code process with Niamh and Tara and the team at the time. By 2018, we had reduced our serious injuries post the dialogue by 78%. We had significantly reduced our cost of those incidents. So we talk about workers' compensation costs, which in the US alone are about $250 million for Pepsico. So very real numbers that come right off the bottom line of the organization. And we went from having this very disparate, unconnected investment strategy for reducing risk to a very clear set of investments that were delivered on an annualized basis. And all of this, where we are today is a totally different context for us as an organization, where we've almost eliminated our most severe incidents that we have. So they are now an exception to the rule. We've saved over $300 million in direct costs to the business over those 5 years. And we have a structured investment strategy based on one single EHS strategy globally that helps us drive down risk systematically on an annual basis, year in, year out, is about $80 million. So the approach we took to this with Niamh's input, so we were 6 different geographies globally. Everybody was working their own strategy. Everybody had their own approach to it, and everybody was right? And nobody was prepared to step back and say, maybe there's a different way or a better way of doing this work. So the dialogue, following these 3 steps, we gathered everybody together to understand really what are the things that are wanted and needed within our employee groups, within the function. We needed to ignite this clarity in our leadership. So, as a leadership group, we were speaking different languages, had different priorities, and nobody was really working on this collective approach that we needed to create. And we knew we needed to create it, we just didn't know before the dialogue how we would activate this. So what the dialogue code created for us was this safe, non-judgmental, inclusive space, and created this environment whereby we as a leadership team had the courage to listen and the curiosity to really understand what our team was telling us, what our frontline teams were telling us. And that enabled us to kind of move the agenda forward. So within the dialogue, these four kind of contexts were really, really key, right? So truth speaking, again, having the courage to say, tell us exactly, and we're going to listen authentically to what it is that you're telling us. Once we create that space for truth speaking and listening, then we can move into solution finding. What we found prior to this was that there was always this bias towards action in the organization, and there was always a desire to jump straight into, well, what's the solution? Let's jump straight into solving the problem, as opposed to just stepping back a little bit and having a dialogue and understanding and creating that clarity about what really is the problem. And then that creates the space for generating solutions. And it also created a whole new context around how we interact with one another. Just much more empathy around getting to know people, getting to know each other, taking a very different approach to how we talk and how we engage and respect one another. So Jenny, this is a video we're going to share from the session, from the dialogue session we had. Jenny, do you want me to stop sharing and you're going to run it?
Yes, I would do that. Thank you.
Seamless technology.
To have an event like this where you get all of our thought leaders, all of our functional experts together for a couple of days is vital.
In order for us to impact people, we need to know people. There's a lot that we do around technical risk control and we're sharing good practices. But as we move forward in the new operating model of working as a global community together, it's even more important that we know each other, that we trust each other, and that we can continue to do that, and then we'll be able to work faster in the work that we're doing together.
So much greater collaboration, much greater informal networking, talking directly to each other, cross boundaries, cross borders, and a willingness to just take what's already there and go and execute it.
In order to comply with the environmental health and safety, we cannot do it alone. We have to do it together with different areas, with different departments, with different business units. I am very proud to be part of the team, and I am sure that all together ourselves we are going to continue to develop the environmental health and safety model and the strategy so we can make sure that Pepsico is a successful.
Thanks, Jenny. So that was our dialogue session that we held in Cork, because apparently Cork was the best place to have it. And it was a game changer for us. I mean, it really was. I mean, we have a very clear purpose around what it is that we're about as an organization, right? So as a function within a big organization, but we weren't working together as one. So the steps that we activated on this was, obviously getting the pulse of the employees is absolutely fundamental. The space for listening, as I mentioned. We had over 100 employees, I think, attend and input to this pre-pulse and the dialogue itself. We went and reflected for a number of weeks as a leadership team based on what we heard, what the outputs from that session was, and to try and consolidate our thinking and look at what those priorities should be, and then put those into a clear plan of action with very clear accountabilities for everybody coming out of it. It also clarified these barriers, these enemies to progress that were very real in the organization, and that without addressing head on, we're never going to help, we were never going to move the needle. So these four key issues were a lack of resources, a belief that we would never get investment to drive improvement, which is kind of a poor me type of conversation that all of us were having as a function. This inflexible structure, that a belief that we had to have central reporting, and we can't influence the organization unless we've got this functional solid line reporting. Lack of cohesion between what the global team function at the time were doing and what was wanted and needed in the business were at loggerheads, and that then created a lack of trust. So, you know, global mandates coming, global priorities coming that were not in sync with what business leadership was expecting us to do. So these barriers were real problems for us. These elements of the code then offered us the opportunity to approach this in a different way, with intentionality, honesty, you know, embracing the discomfort and embracing the fact that, you know, silence is good in many cases, right? But just creating that space that allowed us have this open, frank discussion really helped ignite a much different approach and commitment to doing things in a different way. So we went from, you know, this functional piece, this reporting piece, from just EHS leaders reporting into their local business to a more central reporting to the function lead, to the head of the organization. Now, it wasn't solid line, dotted line. We didn't go down that road because that can be a misnomer and a barrier in itself. Business still needs to own execution, and so we need to be careful with that. But the idea of a much more stronger function with that functional leadership leading was a clear output. We went from mandates to co-creating solutions, right? So we don't do mandates anymore within EHS and Pepsico. Every now and then we might get a mandate from our board of directors, but typically, because we now have a single strategy, and that's the third point, we went from a lack of joined up thinking to co-creating one simple strategy for the organization. So everybody works on the same strategy. If you go to Mexico or go to Latin America, you won't see a different strategy. You'll see our single PepsiCo EHS strategy that's flexible and agile enough for the local business to do their thing within that strategy, but everybody has the same set of top level priorities. We began talking, we went from, you know, not really connecting to the business agenda to directly connecting to the business agenda. It's showing return on investment, speaking language that the executives speak. We got a seat, we got a very active seat at the board with our audit committee, at the board of directors, and our PepsiCo risk committee. We presented those now quarterly and continue to present to them quarterly as well, which again is a real strong indication of the engagement and the where we went from this being a problem to the board now want to hear from us on a more regular basis. The digitalization of our work, so taking complex processes that were old and paper-based and putting them on making them mobile, putting them in iPads, putting iPads in the hands of all of our frontline team, digitalizing our agenda, and then creating this drumbeat of simple messaging. So the video I showed you a few minutes ago, that was one of the outputs from those sessions was that our stakeholders really don't know, are really not clear what we do as an organization. One example of our impact here is for our 88,000 vehicles on the road was a major source of serious incidents. You can imagine some developing markets where you've got trucks on the road, vans on the road delivering products. We installed in every single vehicle telematics, so driver behavior monitoring technology that tells us whether a driver is wearing a seatbelt, are they speeding, are they braking suddenly, are they distracted when they're driving. An absolute game changer. Every single piece of data from each individual truck is uploaded to the cloud minute by minute. So we have this massive data set that gives us a huge opportunity to go and influence those driver behaviors. You can almost chart the days at which the different countries turned on this technology, performance began to improve. That was a significant investment for the organization over that initial period of time. It was about a $40 million investment to do that globally. The return on that investment has been significant, not just in safety, but sustainability, go-to-market sales, compliance, maintenance on our fleet vehicles. The payback has been significantly greater than what we spent on it. We're also now at a point where, you know, we're pioneering technology in the company. We're viewed as a function that is at the front end of adopting technology early. So when the pandemic hit, we had already deployed some of our digitalization solutions. We were able to do virtual auditing while other functions in the company were struggling to figure out how they could go and actually do audits when they couldn't travel. We have a pilot at the moment. We work closely with the UN on their road safety, their partnership, their Decade for Road Safety, where they are very intentional about reducing by 50% the number of road traffic deaths that occur globally. We have a pilot in Manhattan with them at the moment, in a company called Humanizing Technology, with artificial intelligence sensors that will tell the driver whether a pedestrian is likely to step in front of the vehicle or not. So some pretty cool tech there. The point is that that's not where we were prior to dialogue, right? We were in very different space prior to the dialogue. Where we are now is fundamentally different. And then, you know, the change in the way of working, and these elements around trust, agility, and clarity. If the pandemic had hit with the way in which we were operating back in 2016, we would be in a would not have been a pretty space for us to have been in. But the fact that we had created this very agile, trust-based way of working as a function with one strategy globally, our approach to COVID and to the pandemic has been, to blow our own horn a little bit, it's been amazing. We've kept the business running as a function, and we've kept our employees safe all the way through it, and it's been an amazing experience.